He has acre.
Let's go.
Welcome back to the Just Like You and Me podcast. This is episode 45. We're back in the studio, no virtual podcast, and today we have the Christian Kelley. Christian, you've done a lot with Conquest, and another thing we're really excited to talk about is Camp Half-Blood. But Christian, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. Appreciate the invite always.
Obviously you've been a little bit around us. You've known we've been doing this for a little while, but we haven't had a chance to get you down and actually do the podcast with you. You're so busy doing a bunch of different things, so it's really good. I'm really appreciate you making the time and coming on time, and everything is really important.
Yeah, of course, guys. I mean, obviously, I've had some experiences in the past. I've been involved in quite a few things growing up. I try to stay busy, so it's always good to share some things when I can. And obviously, you guys run a pretty tight ship here, so.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have this podcast, because the experiences that you have directly correlate to fantastic experiences that we want to share with different people. So
yeah, and we don't yap at all. It's all just straight actual podcast. And so
I don't know, man. I've seen some podcasts. Just saying.
Yep, sometimes
just
I just snort.
Talking.
Just straight talking.
And that's what you do in a podcast, though, right?
Well, I mean, that is the point, right? Podcasts,
yeah,
cast pods,
yeah, cast pods. We just yeah. But as we're gonna jump into it. So as you know, we like to get people's faith journeys, their formation, kind of see where they started and see where they're going. So growing up your faith, we know you were a cradle Catholic. So how does that, and being homeschooled too? So how did that foundation kind of bring you to where you're at?
Well, so yeah, I mean, obviously being a cradle Catholic, it can be, I'm going to say, difficult sometimes. Because you kind of, there's you don't have a choice kind of thing. So you're kind of thrown into all these organizations and these programs, and you're dragged to church every week. And as a kid, obviously it can feel like, come on guys, let me have a day, right? You have school during the week, whatever. But one of the programs that was really influential, I think, in my total formation personally and spiritually, was Conquest. Conquest basically was, it's a boys group that is designed to grow you into a good, strong Catholic male, right? I'm not sure. There's quite a few across the country. I'm not sure exactly how many, but there's multiple in each state. So it's kind of like any other youth group program. We met on Tuesday nights. Basically, half of the time there was spent just playing sports, having fun with your friends, building relationships, that kind of thing. And then the last half of it was we would pray a chaplet, and then we would read one of the gospel readings. And then after that, we would just talk. You just sit down, we talk about it. Actually, my father was one of the leaders of the groups in the in Conquest. It's broken down into two separate groups. You have the older kids, and then you have the younger kids. The younger kids are kind of sectioned out by age, and then the older kids, they kind of just group them together, and that's the one that's a little more focused. So you have that strict hour and a half of sports, or 45 minutes of sports, and then 45 minutes of God time, right? But yeah, I mean, that was a pretty big portion of my life. I probably was involved from age 5 through age 16, 17.
Wow.
Every Tuesday night. It doesn't run in the summer. It's kind of like a school program almost. We had ours at Queen of Heaven Catholic Church. It's just down the road from where I grew up. So yeah.
Yeah, we recorded a podcast there actually. Queen of Heaven.
Yo, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Father, Connor Martin.
Yes.
Connor. First names are really rough.
Well, hopefully remember mine.
Yeah, but I think it's cool that I didn't realize that it was that big of a age. It was literally kids. Was that it's 5-year-olds? That kindergarten or preschool?
I don't even think it's kindergarten yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it might be. I might have the ages wrong a little bit, but it's somewhere in that general gap.
Yeah, Brian, can you fact check that for us real quick? He'll get back these little stuff sometimes. But that's really cool. Because if you started when you're 5, the relationships you build are lifelong, especially for a homeschooled person. I mean, that's all sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. There's quite a few families that obviously I'm still friends with, and I still talk to the kids and whatnot. And I've seen, honestly, I've kind of lost touch with most of them in small ways. Not like, not saying like I just don't talk to them at all. I'm just saying like we kind of all went our separate ways kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I see them here and there, grad parties and whatnot. So, and it's good to catch up. But I think the biggest help that was there in terms of like building relationships was learning how to actually communicate with people and also communicate with people on a spiritual level too. That was a big thing for me, especially being homeschooled, because you don't really a lot of times you don't really get out much. Now we were growing up, I was a part of like a homeschool group in the area as well, so I did get to kind of get out and hang out with people and whatnot, but it was still really limited, and you didn't get exposed to a lot of the stuff that most other people do. And so I feel like that was almost like a healthy way to get exposed to it.
Did you have like a set, like with your homeschool group, did you guys have like a set like day you guys would meet, or you guys were just like every once in a while you'd do like a, I don't know, call it a retreat thing. What's it when people go out? Field trip thing.
Were you homeschooled, Mike?
I was very homeschooled.
It's noticeable.
Yeah.
So one of the things, we never really met like routinely, because I never did the co-ops. I know a lot of people did the co-ops, where I didn't get involved in that till like high school area. But I mostly just did the field trips, which weren't terribly often, maybe like once a month. So like we did like the Schwabel's bread factory, and like went down to like Mansfield Penitentiary, just stuff like that.
Take the homeschool kids to prison.
Yeah.
We had a very diverse field trip.
Yeah.
It was like,
We did.
Let's go to the bread factory, and next week we'll go to the prison.
Yeah, it's like so they're not the homeschool kids obviously aren't in school like a normal school, so this is what normal school is like, prison.
Right. Well, and honestly, like we didn't spend a whole lot of time with the homeschool group. I don't know. We just didn't really meet with the actual group very often. I feel like they kind of were in their little place down there. We were in this weird. I grew up in this weird like little small area that was in between like two homeschool groups.
Okay.
And so we were kind of like equidistant from each one, and so it's like was I here kind of thing. It was
Yeah, just didn't know exactly where to jump all the time.
Exactly.
But I think co-ops are really cool with like homeschool groups. I think you have a different experience than like what I did, where ours was more of like we would, when I was younger, we had a co-op. Like we would meet on a weekly basis, do like Bible studies. It wasn't anything like you're like learning like school things. It was more just kind of like all like together, socialize, get the moms a break a little bit. But then when I got older into high school, like 8th grade maybe, we would do like actual field trips. We would all like have like a park day. We'd all meet at a park, and there'd be huge. We'd have like a set game like football, baseball, volleyball, whatever it would be. Mm-hmm. And we'd also like do dances and stuff like that, which I thought were really, really cool. It's like, but it was horribly awkward. Homeschool dances, because when I did them, it was so bad. And there was a rule there that it's weird. I'm not trying to make it sound weird, but like the girls couldn't say no if you asked them to dance with you. They did that because the guys wouldn't ask girls to dance with them. And so they tried to do it to incentivize everybody to go dance.
Right.
But there was this one guy, I forget his name. We would make jokes like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna dance with like more girls than you," like how normal like high school freshmen do. He took it too serious. And
always that one guy.
It's always that one guy. He like you only would dance with. There'd be like 3-4 slow songs, right? Where you just dance, kind of talk, get to know each other a little bit. And that's when you only have to dance. So you should only have danced with like maybe 4 or 5 people, right? He wouldn't just dance for the slow songs. He would like, there'd be like Bruno Mars, and you see him in the corner slow dancing with somebody, and they're just being really nice. They don't want to say no. It was so awkward, bro. It was so funny. Who his name? Bless his heart. It was a fun experience though. But I think, did you guys meet more regularly, and it was like more school based for your homeschool co-op?
Yeah, we grew up going to a homeschool co-op. I think it's kind of the standard for pretty much every homeschool family nowadays. But yeah, we grew up going to a homeschool co-op outside of DC, and it was basically a small school. They had, by the time we started going there in 2007, I was 7 years old, and I think around that time they had maybe 100 to 150 students or something like that.
Wow.
By the time we left, though, it was 2 days a week that you had the option to go to, and they had about 600 students.
That's a school. That's more than,
That's
bigger than my
yeah,
local
that's
high
like a
school.
private school.
It was
Yeah.
huge, yeah,
Jeez.
and it's just because of the amount of homeschoolers that were out in that area, which was it was a very, very large community. But one of the things that was really cool about it, and I think maybe this is your experience too with Conquest, is that it really did give you this really good sense from a young age of building community, especially like-minded community. Yeah, like you said, that you were going all the way from the age of 5.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very particular community that was actually being built, right? It was like all young Catholics, boys, girls, teenagers, all the different age groups pretty much, right? But you're building a different type of community or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what we're actually doing with this podcast.
Yeah.
The whole point of this podcast is basically to try to create a community of like-minded individuals, because at the end of the day, we're all like each other, right? We're just trying to get to heaven.
Just like you and me, guys.
Just like you.
Just like
yeah.
you.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Was that kind of your experience?
Yes. I would say on the large front, obviously starting out when you're like super young, it's a lot of it's like,
Right, you
you
don't
go
pay
play
attention.
sports, right? Like,
Yeah. You're being molded.
exactly. But as you start to grow up and you start to get used to people and like these families and these friends, and then you start to get used to the incorporation of like, Bible every week in your life and thinking about the Bible. That's a big thing. I feel like is you learn how to pay attention to between the lines. Like when you're reading something, you learn to talk to people, communicate with people, build relationships, and also read between the lines, right? So like that was probably one of the best things that came out of Conquest for me, which led me to multiple other like retreat organizations that I ended up being a part of, and one of them I ended up running. So yeah,
Let's talk about that. So, as you're getting older, and did you start like actually like working like with Conquest more than just being like someone who attended? Did you start like doing like talks there, running events? How did that go?
not Conquest.
Not Conquest.
Conquest, I ended up getting to a point with Conquest where, and I hate to say this because it was a fantastic program, but it ended up being monotonous for me. It was the same thing every week, same people every week. And so for me, I wanted to branch out, right? I wanted to go be a part of other organizations. When I was, I think 15, I was invited on a retreat by someone who I honestly barely knew. It was called Search. Search was also a nationwide program. They did retreats twice a year. They were all numbered. And so it was more centered around the building relationships aspect, and then like including God in your everyday life. What was nice about Search for me was you didn't have to be Catholic to be there, right? So we had a lot of Protestants that were coming in and would partake in this retreat, and we didn't narrow it down so that only Catholics understood the material, right? A lot of our material was, I don't want to say basic, but like it was more general, and then we would throw in a rosary every day, and then we would throw in like a mass in the mornings. So it was like we had these strictly Catholic things, but then incorporated there was, the general conversations. And the other thing that I really liked about Search is, going into high school, a lot of people struggle with like mental health, and they start to get, bad image in the mirror kind of thing. And so Search was really geared towards that. We had witnesses that usually had 3 or 4. It was always a Friday, Saturday, Sunday that the retreat was on. Friday, we usually had like a slightly lighter witness. And then Saturday, we had 2 that were usually like really strong witnesses. And then Sunday, we had like a send-off witness kind of thing. Usually like a couple people would do that one, and it would just be like how to keep this burning fire alive as you go throughout your life for the next 6 months till the next one kind of thing. So I got super involved in that program. And that's kind of where I moved into after some period of time.
Was it like when you say involved, like a leadership role in that, like running small groups? What do you mean by involved?
So I started out as a new searcher, as everybody does, and then my second search, I was invited back as to be on the team. There were around 30 people on the team, and then there was a core team called the Fiat team, consisted of about 10 people, sometimes less, sometimes more, and they were the ones that like made the big decisions for the actual retreat. I was for the next couple searches, I was only a part of like just the main team. So I would get assigned a role. I would go to weekly meetings. I think it was Thursday nights. Yeah. Go to weekly meetings. They would feed us, and then we would just kind of, once again, build relationships and then worry about how we were going to structure the next retreat. Because it was really cool because you were creating something. There was no real guideline for the retreat. You had a blueprint for like the activities that could be done, or like I don't want to say that, but like you had a blueprint for the actual readings and things like that. But the activities, that was all being made up. Every retreat was different, so none of them were the same. So I really liked that aspect of it too, because it was like you get to build this thing with your friends, your new friends, and it's different every time. So every time you do this retreat, it's like you have to keep coming up with something else. Mm-hmm. You have to make it better every single time. And so I stayed on just the normal team for I think it was like a year or so. And then I got invited up to the Fiat team, and I spent my last few retreats on the Fiat team, and I did direct one of the retreats as well. So I did take a pretty strong leadership role towards the end, and that truthfully is probably what helped for me the most, I would say. Like Conquest was kind of like the prep for that, and then I had Search that like carried me into that drive to actually be in front of people and talk to people and lead.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's like that, taking those stepping stones and starting somewhere, growing, getting better. It's kind of like any job you take. You like start at entry level and you kind of work up that way. I really like the aspect that they have, just like Catholics and Christians there.
Yeah,
and making it all about just like the not necessarily just the person of Christ, but just the community aspect of it.
Yeah,
and a lot of times we're really quick to split each other up, and that's just not helpful in growing. That's why I love this podcast. We're trying to reach both ends, both Catholics and Christians. I would love to get more like Christian minded people on here,
right?
And talk. I think we'll have a couple people that want to come on. It's just kind of the circles we run in. It's just where we both grew up Catholic schedules, and it's like. It's just people we know, like, you know what I mean. It's not that, and that those are the kind of conversations that need to be like having. Like this, a lot of the stuff that I'm like working towards here, and then outside of here is kind of bridging that gap with the Catholics and Christians. And the one thing that has really been on my heart is mirroring the term like Catholic back with Christian. Like we posted a video a couple months ago that said like Catholics are Christian.
Yep,
and
I'm familiar.
That just went. It was
crazy.
Yeah, it went nuts.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was a polarizing topic at all. Because I grew up I was homeschooled Catholic. Just I never had those conversations. Never was anywhere that was not that. And so I was like, okay, so something needs to change. I just want to help as best I can, which I really love that your retreat did that, because it's so super, super important in kind of building those leadership skills. And
but it also has the express purpose of, it's ecumenism, but it's also evangelism, right?
Yes.
To a certain point, because it's called search, right? Mm-hmm. And when you search for something, like you think of the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd searches for his flock with the express purpose of bringing those lost sheep back, right? So because there is a large importance of, basically creating, like you said, that bridge. Like we need to unite as Christians, build that bridge, but it needs to be building that bridge with the express purpose of allowing those people to come back to your side, right? Like you're not going to them where they just are and then like staying there. The purpose is we need to unite back underneath the church, which is, right. I love the way that you said that with like Search, for example. you just sprinkle in a rosary here and
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
mass in the morning, different
Yeah.
things like that. Normalizing that, it's a community type thing, but there are very, very Catholic components that are the central core that actually build up what the retreat is
Yes.
and what it's supposed to do.
Did you find that there was a lot of like conversation between Christians and Catholics, like the Christians asking more questions, like, "Hey, what is the deal with the Rosary, Mary, and like the Eucharist and stuff like that?" At Search specifically.
I didn't notice a whole lot of like questioning, honestly, which is kind of strange looking back on it. But I think it was so well balanced of a retreat. It was honestly, it was one of the best retreats I've ever been to. But you definitely had to be almost like a specific personality to need to be there. It almost like you like I said, there was a strong incorporation of like the mental health battle that people start to enter into once you like hit that high school area. And so like that was really strongly part of like the everyday process through the retreats. And that was honestly, that was a big thing for me too, because it was like, I see these people and I want to like help them and I want to be friends to them. Right. And they're here because they want to experience something that they've never experienced. And so like, I want to give them that experience. And so there wasn't a whole lot of like questioning. There were a couple retreats where I stayed up until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, which was way past curfew. Sorry, Jackie. Way past curfew. But I would sit outside by the fire till like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And there were some people that every year that would sit out with me, and we would end up getting into like a theological conversation, and I would try to share as best as I could with what I knew, and then I would, if I didn't know something, I would just say, hey, you know what, go ask your priest. They're just people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, don't be scared.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who like might get in that kind of conversation where it's like they have to, not necessarily just even like to kind of defend the faith, but like they're kind of having an open discussion?
Be calm. Be relaxed. Don't. One of the things I've noticed when like debating with Protestants and people like other religions that kind of want to question you on things, I've noticed strongly that they kind of bite at you a little bit, right? And I would say the biggest key to, and once again, you're not looking to win these arguments. You're not looking to win the debate. You're looking to plant a seed. You're looking to put something in their mind that makes them question something that they might believe, right? Just to make them look a little harder. That's all you want to do. You don't want to make them feel bad. You don't want to make them look stupid. That doesn't help anybody. So keep your composure. Just be as gentle as possible. And don't try to like fight. Let them have their punches. Let them have their questions. Let them have whatever they need. Just work on just putting that seed right down. Let them think about that.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. That's one thing that you see, like especially on social media. There's some like Catholic creators that don't necessarily take that calm route. They're like more like, "This is it, here, right here. If you don't do this, you're going to hell." Like,
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I understand like where like they might be coming from, but it's like it's not fruitful. A lot of times, there's even this like Catholic creator, I forget his name. I don't want to mention him anyway. That he just yells at like he's trying to be like a Catholic Andrew Tate, but he's kind of shy, and it's like it doesn't work.
I don't know that I've like seen this guy.
I tried to make a clap at him one time. I forgot his name, so I just couldn't actually do it.
The reason we're not saying his name is because he didn't pay us for a promotion.
Yeah, he didn't pay.
Of
He didn't pay.
Of course.
No, I think I've seen what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and it just doesn't help really anybody. But I really appreciate you kind of opening up on that because it's really important.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, it never really helps. It's just kind of sensationalizing things that don't necessarily need to be sensationalized. I think that there can be a healthy balance sometimes, because I think that there is a difference between that kind of perhaps like lashing out that a lot of people tend to do, as opposed to a proper Christian fervor, which is kind of a word that we've been throwing around a lot. but it is something that you definitely see in sort of the spirit of many of the saints, that they're not afraid to back down from what their position is. And sometimes I think that can be looked at perhaps as lashing, but sometimes it really is just someone is very firm and solid in their faith, and it just shows in the way that they speak.
Yeah. Correct.
Which I don't think that there's necessarily any big problem with that, as long as it kind of doesn't go too far against exactly what you're saying, where you're just lashing out for the sake of perhaps lashing out and winning a debate.
Right. Like you don't. Your goal is not to win.
No,
it shouldn't ever be to win.
No,
if your ego,
you're not going to win.
No.
At the end of the day. Follow the stereotype. Catholics don't know versus the Bible.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was actually just about to bring up a biblical reference, but you can see it in sort of the writings of St. Paul, for example. Sometimes he really is chastising some of these people, and you can kind of read it into some of the stuff that he's saying. Like, for example, the Galatians, where they're talking about different things about, how you make someone a Christian. Do they have to become Jewish first? Yeah. You can tell by the way that he's writing that he's basically telling these people, like, you can read it, it sounds like he's saying you guys are stupid. But obviously, he doesn't say that. But he's just very, very firm in the way that he says things. He's very, very strong about it.
Right.
That it kind of seems like it's lashing out, but it's not really lashing out. Yeah. It's really actually giving out. St. Justin Martyr, who has a famous dialogue with Trypho, who's a Jew, and he really doesn't bash Trypho for being a Jew necessarily, but he just tells him straight up what is going to happen if he doesn't become Catholic. If he understands all the information that St. Justin is giving him, you're going down the wrong path, and he wasn't afraid to basically tell him you're going down the wrong path.
Right. I think it's like you have to be like tactful with it. Like there's some conversations that you can do that. It's like it depends on where the person's at, kind of questions they're asking, and then you obviously, especially like in the comment section, when someone's actually asking a question because they're curious, or they're just saying something just to lash out. Like there was this comment that we had on one of our videos about the Bible, and it was saying like the Catholics added the other 7 books because that's how they say that their mass is valid and why they exist. I'm like, that's so wrong. So I responded.
So wrong.
Yeah, I responded just not even like saying like just getting in depth. I just kind of just like over like just give him the history of it. Probably wasn't fruitful, but it was one of those things that's the struggle that I have a lot of the time. It's like knowing when and when not to do it.
Right.
But I think that the tactfulness, knowing when to kind of dive into, standing super super firm into it rather than like listening, answering like their questions. A lot of the times that I find when I'm having these type of conversations goes exactly what Zach Taylor said, is you're kind of shoveling all like these stereotypes and the bad things people talk about the Catholic faith.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they don't even know what the Catholic Church actually even teaches.
No.
There's actually a funny clip that I want to turn into a meme. Is I said at the Calvin podcast, I said, if I believed what you believe about what I believe, I would think I was crazy too. Because a lot of the Christians believe they don't know what true Catholicism is, because like after it split off, it was just a bunch of just bashing, and then it's like have you ever played the game Telephone?
Yeah.
Right,
it's all stereotypes.
Yeah, you say one thing, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just like nowhere near the truth at the end of it. Yeah. And that's a lot of it with the Catholic Church, like worshiping Mary, idolatry, worshiping the saints. It's like it's what you're saying we don't do, and I agree with you. That stuff's all bad, but that's not what we're doing or teaching at all. Like that's what I'm finding a lot of the times. It's a lot of the conversation is literally just that. But I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a Christian. I think he's Methodist, and it was really cool because he was asking a lot of questions, and a lot of the times I wouldn't have to say anything, and he would answer himself like the way I would have asked him. He's like, "Oh, so why do you do this?" And maybe he says this, and I'm like, all right, thank you, God. Like, I don't have to say anything.
Talk.
Every once in a while, he'll be like, all right, what's your point of view? And I'm like, oh, what do I believe?
Well, there's always that like brief second where you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like that. It's that instantaneous, just that stop, right? It's like, what do I say?
Yeah,
and that's just where you have to like let the Holy Spirit take over and just speak, man. You know what I mean? Like, what you believe. at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm such a firm believer in like having such a calm delivery. Just relax, like make it a conversation, right? Don't like cross your arms and like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be that person. Like, make it a conversation. Be calm about it. Be gentle about it. Like, don't be pushy. Just let them go. You know, let them talk. They'll warm into allowing you to talk too.
Yeah.
But cycling back to like the Holy Spirit, so that's one thing that I've actually feel like I've experienced a lot is like just when you calm yourself down and you know that, you know what, he's going to take over. He's going to help me with the words that I want to say. He's going to help me be influential in these people's lives. That's one thing that I've really experienced a lot, honestly. And I'm really grateful for that. There was one time, actually Jackie, she was the, kind of like the director of the whole search program for the Diocese of Cleveland. She called me one day and she was like freaking out. She was just like, we have, sorry.
You're good. You're good. Cook.
So she was just like, so we have, this confirmation group that is like meeting tomorrow at like 3 p.m. And she was just like, the speaker just backed out and we don't have anybody to talk. She's like, can you just like come up here just on the fly? Like, we just need somebody who can talk for like 15 or 20 minutes about this little short clip that we're going to play. And then you have to say this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay. And I had a concert the next day. I was playing at the Faith and Family Festival at Walsh University. And so I was in my like drummer stage attire. So I had this gray tank top on with a black and gray cut off jacket with the hood. And then I had like my, green or dark green, like khaki, or not khaki, camo shorts. And I just looked real rugged. You know what I mean? Like I looked like a drummer. And so I got off the stage. I ran up to my car. I drove an hour and a half out there. I was like broke at the time. I'd just been in an accident. I was like, man, why am I doing this? Like, well, what's going on here? And so I get up there and I walk into this room. There's probably like 25, 30 kids, very small, like church. And they just look like, why am I here? Look. And I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I basically just have to sit here and watch this video and then make something up, right? But also incorporate this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, where am I going to go here, right? And so I opened as any normal person would in a conversation. I pointed out that I looked like an idiot, which opened up the room a little bit, but I had to take a second to breathe. Honestly, I didn't even watch the video. I gotta be honest with you. Sorry, Jackie.
You have to send this to Jackie now, dude.
I do. I know. So I didn't even watch the video because I was like so focused on like, how do I even start this? Because these kids, like half of them were like doodling while the video was playing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so they're not even paying attention. So I was just like freaking out. And then I was like, you know what? If I just stop just for a second, just breathe, figure out how I'm going to start, and Holy Spirit's going to take care of the rest. And so I ended up talking for like 15, 20 minutes. Apparently I did great. I have no idea. I feel like I rambled, but that's it is what it is. But I actually got some involvement, which I thought was good. I was like, you know what? If I can get a couple of these kids to actually speak up and like maybe ask a question or even like comment on something, even if it's small, like that was my goal. And so that happened, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I've done all I can. I've subbed in for somebody who was supposed to be here and couldn't make it, unfortunately. And so, God ended up taking care of me that day. I guess they had prepared an envelope of $450 in cash, and I didn't even have 2 nickels to rub together. So it was like, okay. So it ended up being like this great thing. But like I think that was a day that I realized like just let it go. Just be calm. Just relax.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter in the end. Like, nobody wants to be up there talking in front of people. Like, everybody in their chair is sitting there, like, they're thinking about it, and they're like, no, I don't want to be up there, right? They don't want to be in your position. So I like to think about those, like, one-on-one debates, or even if it's just like a small group discussion about religion. I like to think of it the same way. It's almost like public speaking. So you are never going to go anywhere in it unless you maintain that, like, relaxed air of confidence but straight composure.
Oh, big thing with that too is you said yes. You know what I mean? Like, the Holy Spirit can't work with you unless you say
You
yes.
have to say yes.
It's not
Take
easy.
risks. Take risks.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. It's to just trust. I mean, that's what faith literally is.
We're about to get into some interesting territory here.
Let's do it. That's why we're
Should
at
we
the
dive.
Yes, dive. We're in.
So, possibly hot take. I fundamentally disagree with everything the Catholic Church says about vocation. At least
The Catholic Church or the people inside the Catholic Church?
the people inside the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Yeah, let
It's
me
like,
clarify.
that's the
Guys,
distinction.
everybody
Okay.
relax.
All right. Say it one more time clearly.
All right. I fundamentally disagree with everything that people inside the Catholic Church teach about vocation. I think it's wrong. I think that kids are made to feel like there is one thing out there that they can do and they have to go find it. I feel like kids are made to believe that they're never going to be happy until they like find that one thing that God has intended for their life. And I don't like it. I really don't. I think that vocation is something that you will always end up finding it. You always will, first of all. Let me start there. Because God will help push you in directions that will start to mold you into your vocation, whatever that is. And some people, there's different kinds of vocation, right? There's like your vocation when you're a kid is like your vocation is to obey your parents, to do your schoolwork, to learn, to grow. And then you get into the deeper conversation of like your life vocation, which is like, what is that? I feel like that's a big question. It's like, what is my life vocation? At the end of the day, I don't think that it should be something where it's like, you have to find this. And this kind of plays into what you said, saying yes. If you go read like Thomas Aquinas, for example, a lot of the things that he talks about, and even Augustine like briefly touches on this a little bit, is like God will put stones in front of you, right? And it's your choice. You can either walk around them or you can pick one up, look underneath of it, right? Either way, it doesn't hurt you. If you skip one, you're just going to, right, put it in front of you again, right? And so you have that opportunity to say yes, pick up the stone, explore the idea. You don't have to go with it. He's just giving you that option. We have free will, right? He's just giving you that option to explore, find out if that's something that you want, if that's something that you find interesting, that's something that you want to dive into more. And if it's not, then you move on, right? And so I feel like it's just, we're made to believe growing up that there's this one like end goal and we have to be this kind of person. And I just don't think that's true.
I agree with you. I like that a lot. I mean, I'll talk to like a lot of priests and stuff, like even Father Nate. Like he felt a call, but he wanted to go another way, but he kept feeling that, like that God putting that stone in front of him, and then he eventually said yes. Right. And I think that even goes into, we're gonna jump into a lot of things. It even goes into marriage.
Oh yeah.
Like the idea of like the soulmate.
Yes.
Like you have one person, and that's the only person that you ever can marry and ever be happy with. And it's a beautiful thought. It really is. But it is. But you're also like you're putting so much extra pressure on yourself, your relationship, and God. You know,
you feel like you have to dig.
Yeah.
Get your shovel out. Start going.
Yeah, and it's because it takes away faith. It takes away trusting in God that He'll put you in the right direction. I think we put those kind of things in our way so that it makes us feel like we have control over our life. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I have to find my one thing, then I'll be happy. This is what it is. I have my one person that'll be happy. That's what it is. That takes away faith. And that's not having faith. Having faith is trusting that God will put the right person in your life at the right time, and God will put you in the path of the right vocation. He'll give you the tools from a young age, the experiences you have to kind of build you into that. Yep. And whatever God has planned for you, whoever God has planned for you to marry, your job, it's going to be beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be way better than you ever expected it to. If you fully trust in God and let Him write your love story, it's like, Jesus, take the wheel. Mm-hmm. Let Him run. Let Him drive the car.
But on that same note, you also have to be willing to say yes, right? You can't just sit there and be like, you know what? It's going to hit me in the face like a baseball bat.
I wish it was that easy.
If it was that easy, like, it'd be crazy, right? But like that's the flip side of that coin is like, then you have the idea of like, well, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to wait. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Wait till somebody comes in my life and I'm just going to sit here, right? But that's also not the right mentality. It's like, yes, God will help, put you in those positions such that but you still have to say yes. Once again, we still have free will, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a balance that needs to be there. Mm-hmm. Like pretty much everything else that exists in the faith sense of our lives. Moderation is almost always the key. Yeah. Like you said, you can't just sit around and kind of expect it to just happen. It could happen that way, but odds are it most likely won't. I think the key word is cooperation.
Yeah.
Right? There's a cooperation that happens between your will and the grace that's given to you by God. Right?
Yes.
We cooperate to receive more grace in a certain sense. So to a certain extent, you need to do some work to be able to find your vocation, right? Yeah. Absolutely. To a certain extent, you must go out there. Even the word vocation itself, I don't know what the proper etymological term is, where it comes from. I know it's Latin, but I think what it means is it's a vocative, right? It's saying something. It's vocal, right? Yeah. But it's very particular. It's not seeing something. It's not hearing something. It's saying something, which means that it's a very active thing, right? At the end of the day, you must say the yes, like you said before. You must say that, right? It has to come from you, ultimately. God will give it to you. He'll put that stone in front of you, but ultimately at the end, it must be your choice to kind of go to it in order to fulfill it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There was one thing I brought up in the podcast with Calvin. We're talking about Chris entering the seminary and his buddy Gabe, who entered the seminary and just turned out of it. But to discern the priesthood, just that vocation in general, you have a lot of people they'll think oh, maybe I want to be a priest, but then they're not really doing anything to actually seek that vocation. They're still going on dates, they're doing all these other things. To actually seek a vocation, like you've mentioned, you have to be doing something. It's an active process. Mm-hmm. You need to be going to retreats, trying to get to the seminary, doing all these types of things.
Can't just say maybe.
You can't just say maybe. It's like, oh, maybe it could be a thing, but not doing anything for it. Yeah. And then also speaking to the marriage vocation. If you want to be married, you want to be a husband, be a wife, you have to be actively acting out that vocation. You have to be a husband. You have to be looking for it and then also being it, though. Mm-hmm. So, when I was dating, I was just doing the normal thing. I was just dating people. I'll find my wife. I'll just do this. I'm just date. I'm still gonna act like a single guy. I'm still gonna go out and party, do all these other things that are just horrible for you, and just not actually finding your vocation.
Right.
But when I sat down and I'm like, okay, I need to change something in my life. I want to be a husband. I need to start acting like a husband. I need to start having discipline, going to church, praying more, doing all these things. And then when I started to do that, God was like, okay, you're ready here. Now, it wasn't until I was up into that point where I was able to dig out, find that stone. It's like, boom, here it is. So my advice for anybody who wants to be married, wants to live out that vocation, they feel like that's where God's calling them, be that vocation. Live that vocation to the best of your ability. And when you're ready, and God knows you're ready, God will put that thing in your that little stone in your way. But here it is.
Right.
100%.
It's like taking the example of Mary, right? when the right moment comes up, you need to be ready to give the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, in that sense, it's almost always going to be yes, right? The answer should be yes in order to receive your vocation, unless you're being asked to deny something.
No.
The great no heard around the world.
But
Of course.
that's the right way to think about it. You need to always be able to prepare for your vocation to some extent. Yeah, for example, you and I as married husbands, and you're about to be a father.
You are a father.
I am a father now, right?
Well, you guys are married?
We are, yeah. I don't think I've ever said that on the podcast. But
I think
he's making fun of your phrasing.
Yeah, you said married husbands. I was like,
We're not. Ben and I are not married, but we are married.
let me
Separately.
let me poke fun. Come on.
oh yeah,
Let me poke fun.
Yeah, I love it.
yeah, we're married husbands.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna rephrase. I'm just gonna say it with confidence.
Yeah.
Like we said in the podcast before this. I think we said, was that in the podcast or was it cut out?
Wait.
I didn't cut anything from the podcast.
What's,
Oh yeah, I kept it in. I know exactly what you're talking about. I kept
what's
it
that
in.
mean? So why are you gay?
It was like,
Who says I'm
who's up
gay?
gay?
You are gay.
I love that. But continue, Ben.
Yes.
The idea is, for example, before you were married, you had to think about, how do I honor my future wife? As a priest, how do I honor my future covenant, right? These different things you have to think about. How do I honor what my future vocation is? And that just really is, at the end of the day, it's just remaining pure. It's being true to yourself. Kind of what you actually said, something that you were talking about when you were talking about the talk that you were doing. Doing stuff like that is very important to build yourself up as an individual, not necessarily always because you're helping out other people. For example, giving out a witness is, can be important for other people, but oftentimes it can actually be equally as important for yourself, right? Because you, at the same time as building repertoire with other people, you're also building up repertoire within yourself to be able to do something like that again. For example, starting up a podcast when you have absolutely no clue how to do a podcast, talking in front of people when you have no idea what to say in front of other people.
Yeah.
It's building up the idea that you can do it, when you can do it by accepting the grace that's given to you by the Holy Spirit, proving that you can receive that grace. If you can do it once, you can do it again. If you can do it again, you can do it better. If you can do it better, you can do it the best possible way that you ever possibly could. And that's only because the Holy Spirit is guiding you to that.
What's that thing you would say? If the min, the max.
Yeah. Wow, that is bringing all the way to the back of the beginning of the podcast. Yeah, that was something that we used to say, was the idea that if the minimum of something is true, then the maximum is also true, right?
Yes.
And the minimum is, if I can give this talk, I could become the Pope.
I'm clipping it just like that. I'm just gonna
Okay. That right there. First of all, clickbait.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic content for you guys.
But that's the idea, right?
Yes.
No, I love that idea.
It's obviously a joke, but
it's a concept that you are capable of doing this. You know, a lot of times as humans, we psych ourselves out. We look at something and we're like, whoa, that's a little big. I can't do that, But the reality is, like, as long as you let God take over, as long as you, like, have confidence that you can say the right things and that you can do the right things, and you can, if you wake up every day and you choose that day to live for God, that's the start to your success. Because you're waking up, you're rolling out of bed, and the first thing you do is you're committing your day. Everything I do today, I'm going to do for you. And if you can start yourself in that direction, that's how you carry yourself in. And then every day you just start saying yes in small ways, right? Maybe it's like, trash is overflowing. I don't want to take it out. It's a long way to walk. Gonna walk 20 feet to the freaking trash can, go outside. But maybe it's just once, whatever. All right, I'll do it now. I'm not gonna do it in an hour. I know I'm not gonna do it in an hour. So I'll do it now, right? Then the next day, maybe it's something a little bigger, right? and then just gets bigger and bigger, and then pretty soon it's influencing your life. You're doing something you never thought that you would ever be doing. I never thought I'd be, a part of a business in such a big way, right? I never thought that I'd be capable of communicating with people on such a high level, right? I was homeschooled. Like, I'm afraid of people, right?
Yeah.
But saying yes in those small ways every single day, breaking you out of your shell, preparing you for what God truly wants you to do in your life, in whatever way that means to you,
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to add is not only just taking a leap of faith, but also putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. When you continue to do that, then everything becomes comfortable. It's you mentioned even started the podcast. It's not comfortable having cameras, lights, mic.
Really?
In front of you. When we first started, it was crazy, right?
It's not as bad as doing it in front of a crowd.
No, I was actually thinking like as you were talking,
there
I'm
is
like,
a crowd here. I mean,
we have
got
Brian.
Brian's here.
Yeah,
Hey,
Brian's
Brian.
always here. Brian's,
How are you, man?
It's good to see him.
It is.
We don't let
You
him
You know
on
what's
the mic.
great? You know what's great, guys? I now know who Brian is.
Yeah, you're in now.
I'm
You're
in.
in the
It's like this secret. Like I feel like I have knowledge that I should.
we have every single one of our guests sign an NDA though before doing the podcast.
Oh, I didn't sign that.
We'll get you after.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
I'm about to leap.
cut.
You forgot that we have the power of editing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm scared.
Like the stuff you said in the beginning. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
There is something to be said though. Going back to the conversation, there is something to be said, especially when reviewing vocations. You need to know how to evaluate your own life.
Yeah.
And you said that was one of the good skills that you kind of learned from search, was just kind of evaluating the small things in order to be able to say yes to the big things when they came up.
Yeah.
Right. And this really becomes pertinent when discussing vocations, because this actually went really big into my decision as to why I got married. Was I knew what position I was in. I knew what I wanted to do when I was, dating Ashley at the time, who later obviously became my wife. Before I actually proposed, I always had this one thought that was really running in my mind. I think I actually told it to you a few times. And I don't know if it ever went into your head before you proposed to Kai, but I always thought there's no good reason to put off goodness, right? Which is kind of like a small idea, but it's something that if you really think about it, really changes your whole life. It really changes your whole perspective. It's
Yeah.
the idea that if there is something in my life that I can evaluate to become better, there's no good reason for me to put that off. There's none, and that really takes away the whole perspective of like, what kind of excuse can I come up with to not do this?
Yeah.
Oh, the trash can is 20 feet away, right? It's not a good reason.
It's not.
It's not a good reason,
No.
because there's something that's better at the end of taking out the trash. Now I have a cleaner house.
Yeah.
Right? I've done something to improve my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in that. It's like they try to like they're being married, taking any step into a vocation it's asking a lot of you. It's your whole life. Like marriage is your whole life. When you become a priest, it is your whole life. So it's not something that people like take lightly. But a lot of times, what people will do is they'll stack up all these little. They'll make a mountain out of a molehill. I think that's what
Yep.
like that phrase is. And they'll start like, oh, you know what, this isn't perfect. Well, you know what, we can work on this. And it's nothing ever is perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. Like there's the idea that we'll only be perfect in heaven. On this earth, we'll never get perfect.
I had this conversation with one of my maintenance team members.
Yeah, it's because it's the thing that a lot of people struggle with.
It is,
and I see it a lot in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are living a godly life, you are with God, you're praying with God, and you know where you need to be. There's no good reason to put off goodness. And another thing that actually I do remember you saying that a lot, and I love that. And another thing that I kind of thought about too was like there's no good times, but there's better times. Like
Yeah.
so like it kind of it's a little bit different than what you were saying, but it's more of like when you're like especially when trying to get married, there's no good time. Life's always going on. Life doesn't just stop. You get engaged, it stops for a year. You can have all the time to plan a wedding, all these other things. It doesn't stop. There's no good time. But you can just trusting in God to find the better time and stuff along those lines. But with your maintenance guy and those kind of conversations, you kind of mentioned something with just the perfection.
Yeah, well, I just the other day, he had said something about like there were a few mistakes that were made on like the schedule and whatnot, and there were a couple drivers that were upset, and I got in, and then he immediately like came up to me, and he was just like, "Dude, there were some mistakes last night." I was like, "Okay," like I heard, like I know. I'm up here. Like, I get it. It gets to me. And he was just like, the drivers expect us to be perfect. I was like, I get that. And he's like, you have to be perfect. And I was like, listen, man, if you have that pre-built thought process that I, as, the operations manager here, has to be perfect in everything I do, so you might as well just leave right now, because I'm going to let you down every single day. I was like, everybody here is going to let you down every single day. We're humans. We're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect here. And I was like, so, and obviously I know this doesn't have anything to do like necessarily spiritually, but it was just like that kind of conversation where it was just like he was expecting something of me that wasn't possible. And so there's also, I think that's, there's an important line there too, as a human, of understanding your own limits. Don't be afraid to say no if it's the right situation, right? Don't be afraid to draw that line in the sand and say, you know what, I'm not capable of this. I'm a human. I can't do this. He can. I can't.
Yeah, and that plays in a couple different things. It doesn't mean don't strive to be the best you possibly can.
Exactly.
Right? Because you always need to be the best you possibly can in all situations, but also don't be so hard on yourself that when you're not perfect, that you freak out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the world sets a lot of very unreal expectations when it comes to perfection, beauty standards, all of these types of things. And like you can get 100% on a test, but you also can get 110% on a test when you have like extra credit. Like that's not a good reflection of real life. That's a lot of thoughts people have. So I can get 100%. Like that is an attainable number. But when you put it into humanity, that doesn't exist.
No.
You get like people who have like good marriages. Like there's a lot of really great things that happen there, but it's not perfect. There's always going to be some sort of argument. Something there's humanity. What's that thing you said? Whatever you find, like whatever there's humans, there's humanity. Like that's nothing's ever been truer. And that's what a lot of things people need to understand is continue to strive for the best you possibly can, trust in God, and then whatever comes out of that, that's what it is. And learn from it. Like I find I learned more from my failures than I do my successes.
100%. Why do we fall?
To get back up.
Get back up.
To
Batman.
learn to pick ourselves back
Oh,
up.
darn it.
You were close.
Sorry, should have said it like a Michael Caine accent.
Yeah.
You can say it again. Say it
Oh,
too.
I cannot do that.
I imagine.
Why do we fall, Master Bruce?
This is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Michael Caine.
Just to watch it, we get a comment. That was horrible. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine's
Michael
actual
Caine.
YouTube
Yeah.
account.
Oh
he
my
have
gosh.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, he did. I
Does
think he
he?
does.
Yeah.
I think Brian.
Brian?
Brian,
It is.
fact check.
Yeah. Fact
Get off
check
your
that.
phone.
Dude, Brian's always on his phone. Man.
He is, man.
He's on his phone. He always
He
eats.
is.
Yes.
Like it's like he doesn't eat throughout the whole day, and then he comes here, he's just munching.
Yeah,
It's
what
like,
do you do, man? Like, don't you just do
No,
like the
I know
audio?
he's busy,
You know what?
but,
You know what, guys? Hold on. I'm gonna take a moment here. I think Brian. I feel like there's like this misconception of Brian, right? I feel like this dude. He's over here. He's eating while he's trying to record. He's on his phone, like he's I don't know. Maybe he's like responding to emails or something. Like, let's take a moment to appreciate Brian. Everybody,
yeah, we love Brian.
we love Brian, right?
I don't think we've gotten a moment of appreciation for Brian
since he answered the one question.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
He answered the one question.
That was like
What
a
was
few
that for?
podcasts ago, right?
With
I think. I don't know.
Michael Caine does.
It's one of the
not have
ones
a
I've
YouTube
seen.
account.
no.
Brian confirmed.
Okay,
Thank you for confirming.
thank you.
But
you.
I want to take this nice pause to transition into Camp Half-Blood.
Ah, yes.
Okay, I know that. So this podcast will be coming out on Friday, and camp starts on Thursday, the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people that don't know, what is Camp Half-Blood?
Well, I don't know who read the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series from Rick Riordan, or if anybody here is familiar with Rick Riordan's books. But basically, it's a spin-off of one of the camps that was very much like the focal point of the Greek series that he wrote, Percy Jackson. Basically, in the books, it was this place where demigods, so like, half god, half, you get the idea. They're like the kids, right? Mm-hmm. Where they could go and they would be like safe in this little bubble of a camp, and they would be trained on how to fight, and like they would hone their like skills, and they would build community and all this other stuff. So at any rate, one of the families in the homeschool group opened up a Camp Half-Blood, and they made like the orange T-shirts and the Pegasus, and it was very cool. It was honestly, there wasn't really a whole lot of, there was a spiritual aspect to it. Like obviously we would pray before meals, and like I think as the years went on, there was more and more and more incorporation of like Christian ideas into it. But truthfully, like most of the time it existed so that kids could come together, have a hell of a time for 3 straight days, and beat the tar out of each other with foam swords. Like that was a big thing, right? All the dudes just got together and just, it was, it was great.
Yeah, let's talk details. Let's talk details. I want to get into it because I've seen the swords are crazy. How long do you guys work on those? Wait, first thing I actually want to know is how long has it been going on?
Okay. It's like 17 years now. 16 years, maybe. I was young. I was like a year 2, I think, year 3, something like that. So I was part of the first group. You mentioned the swords. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the swords. Because, you've seen these, like, big creations, these, like, pool noodles, I'm sure, on the end of PVC pipe. It's, like, 12 freaking feet long, right? Just all you got to do is swing it at the ground and you hit, like, 25 people kind of thing.
Because they're all kids.
Right. So it never used to be like that. There used to be, everybody had Nerf. Nerf used to make Nerf. I'm going to start here. If anybody at Nerf ever watches this, please bring back the foam swords. These things were fantastic. I'm sorry if you ever got sued because of them, but please bring them back. So basically, Nerf used to make, there were 2 lines of foam swords they would make. They would make the Zombie Strike, and then there was one other one.
End Strike.
Yeah. End Strike.
I had it.
Yeah, I have the Zombie Strike. I have the Zombie Strike. Yes! I have the mace.
Do you still have that?
Oh, yeah.
Is it still in your car?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is.
We'll continue. Sorry.
So, so they made these rubber foam like weapons, and so the swords, I mean, they were like normal sword length. So when camp first was like the first probably 6-7 years of it, everybody had one of those, and so there was an actual like skill to it, right? Like there were tiers of kids. One of the best swordsmen. There were a few that were really good, but Will, I remember he had a Marauder that he used, and then Patrick was a phenomenal swordsman. And we would do like dueling. There would be like a period of time. It was usually like a 30-minute section during the day where there was this like rectangle in the like up by the main parking area, and it was big enough that you could like take a few steps in. But it was a duel. I mean, it was 2 people. You would challenge somebody. You'd go in with them, and it was a fight to the death kind of thing. It was heavily monitored, so like if your arm got hit, like you couldn't use the arm kind of thing. Like it was just a really cool thing. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, so it was very heavily skill based originally, and then Nerf discontinued the swords, and so people had to start making their own swords. And slowly it transitioned into now it's who has the bigger sword.
So you would say it's pay to win?
Yeah, it's pay to win.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because like you're not paying that much money to build these things. Yeah. Like you're just getting some pool noodles and some PVC pipe, calling it a day.
Duct tape.
a lot of duct tape. But yeah, it used to be like a lot more of a skill aspect, in my opinion. It's like it gets a little frustrating sometimes thinking about it, but I still lived in that era where it was heavily just the Nerf swords and whatnot. It was a good time.
Yeah. What's it? So when it all started, was Viking football a thing? And then also, what is Viking football?
Might I don't know. This is a dangerous topic.
Well, let's keep it.
So Viking football.
Yeah, let's keep it. Yeah.
Viking football. So you have two sides of the field, right? You picture, for the sake of the audience and your minds, picture a football field. Okay. So you have a team in this end zone and a team in this end zone. You walk to the middle, and there's referees. You start the clock. It's usually like 2 to 3 minutes per like round. And basically, you have to try and drag, carry, pull, whatever, as many people as you can from the opposite team into your end zone. Once they get to your end zone, they have to stay there till the round's over. And then once the round is over, everybody goes back to their collective sides. And obviously one team's going to be hopefully bigger than the other. And it's basically just, that's what it is, right? You keep going until it's just either one person or nobody left. Or a few, or these people surrender, or whatever, right? That's kind of like the person is the football.
Did you guys like invent that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of like the early days of camp. Like I said, I was a year 3, so it was a thing when I first got there. So I don't know if they came up with it or if it was already a pre-existing thing. I want to say they came up with it.
And the field. Do you guys do anything special to the field?
Yeah. So we get the field like soaking wet. So it's a complete mud hole. It's fantastic. Originally it's a great time. Then everybody starts to get older. And it starts to turn into more of a brawl. People start getting hurt. And that's okay. We all agreed to it. I've been there on more than one occasion. But yeah, that's Viking football was everybody's favorite most of the time. Until we all started getting older, and it's like you wake up the next day and you're like, pretty sure I fractured my spine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can definitely see. I would have been the person that would take it too far. And then the last day, there is something that goes on.
The camp show. So the show, is something that you kind of prepare for throughout the whole 3 days of camp, right? Because you're sectioned out in cabins. It's structured very much like the camp off Papal in the books. So like everybody has their like god that they're cabin with. When I was a counselor, I usually led like the Aries cabin, for example. But each cabin individually, they work together during the week the 3 days to first of all do a skit. The skits used to be very generic. They were like the corny skits, that you find on the internet kind of thing. It was fun. It was a good time, whatever. And then we started to be able to like write our own and like do some other random things. We went a little too far a couple times. It happens. But the other thing is there's a dance show. Usually, obviously the girls of camp go and do like a 3-minute dance show. They like choreograph they choreograph a whole thing. And then there's also battle enactment. Battle enactment is basically, it's usually all the guys. It's a mass choreographed war, essentially. It's usually like 5 minutes long, and it takes the whole 3 days. There's usually like 3 or 4 like main level counselors who are like planning the whole thing, and there's usually a big pretty much all the time everybody dies except for like 5 or 6 people, and then there's like this mini like sword fight completely choreographed with like the 5 or 6 people, and then I don't know, it's a whole thing. The show itself is probably like hour and a half,
Is that long?
2 hours, yeah, something like that. It's cool because like every cabin has to do their own skit too. So like you do skits.
Oh, so it's all
And then
together.
you
You
do-
fitting skits. Okay.
Yeah.
I
But
thought it was the
you
battle
do your
scene was an
own.
hour and a half.
No.
It's like-
The battle scene itself is probably only like 5-10 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
The skits are what take the longest because each cabin, if you have like 13 cabins, each cabin has to go up and do their like 3 to 5 minute skit.
Mhm.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
all right. Come on.
Yeah, but I think it's cool about Camp Half Blood is like all the parents come and watch all of that stuff. So you have like all the people like sitting down and watching. It's, I mean, that's what kids need. I mean,
It is.
It's a good break from reality.
You know, it's a great break from reality. So this is the point I was going to bring up. There wasn't a whole lot of like spiritual incorporation. Honestly, my parents, I mean, they liked it obviously because we were having a good time and like it was the homeschool group people that we knew. But like I think that there were times where they were like, well, you know, we'd like they're more Catholic and integration, Christian incorporation kind of thing. But truthfully, it really was there just to like bring community together. You know what I mean? To have kids just be able to come together for like 3 days and just do whatever, have fun, be kids, beat the tar out of each other with foam swords, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And that was like, I think that was the most important thing for me, at least. It was a time where I could go and just have fun.
Yeah, well, and then the kids get to create something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been here for what, 8 years, 7 years, whatever the math is.
Yeah.
And
I've been here for
your whole life.
23.
It's too long. But seeing, kind of being introduced to it, hearing the idea, and I was like really confused about it. But then now, like, my siblings are going to it, they're involved in it, and like seeing what all the leaders do, it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to create something as a community, you just get so close. You build these friendships that are just going to last for so long, and I think it's beautiful what they're doing. And hopefully they'll watch them, send this to Dom, all the people that watch this, or do like Camp Half Blood. Hope they can enjoy the old school mentality, the OG talking about Camp Half Blood.
Yes, sir.
Like it's an absolutely beautiful thing. But Christian, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time.
It has.
We've talked on a lot of great things. As you know, you've probably watched the podcast many times. You're an avid listener. This is your time. Give your final thought, call to action to the audience. That is your camera, and this is your time.
Well, I want to start by saying thank you guys very much. I appreciate the invite to come on. Obviously, I've seen your podcast before. What you guys are doing here is fantastic. Honestly, you guys have great conversations. You have great guests. Keep up the good work. I'd love to come back sometime if you'll have me. For the guests, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Say yes. Don't be afraid to take that risk. Don't be afraid to turn over that next stone. Explore your options. Go around it if you need to. Have faith, trust God, pray every day, and say yes to God every day when you roll out of bed. That's the message.
Christian, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for the kind words. We're going to keep doing the best we can, promoting community. And so one thing I want to share before we turn the cameras off, we are coming out with merch. It is happening. We're doing it. This is for Matthew Eby. You're the first person that said something to me. I don't know if you'll watch this, but hey, we're doing it. This is for you, okay?
It's got that logo.
It's got that logo. It's got words on them.
Can I see some?
Well, I'll show you some right after
Yes,
we
sir.
do this. One might even have Ben and I's face on it. We don't know.
Whoa.
Yeah, could
Hey,
be nice. So
guys, you got to support these boys.
Yeah.
All right, support these guys. Go get some merch. This is news to me.
yeah,
Let's go. Come on.
it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, Christian, again, thank you so much. And this has been the Just Like You and Me podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Boom.
Boom, bam.